If you could only pick 3 starter trios and the rest got wiped from existence, which would you keep? This came from a TikTok I recently watched that motivated me to finally make a video on my thoughts of the starter Pokemon. So not only am I going to give you the objective answer to that question, I'm going to give you a whole video essay worth of what makes a good and bad starter Pokemon, from Mr. Itzjhon Pokemon himself. Today we're going to find out which starters are the best, and which should have went back to the drawing board. Now, huge disclaimer before we start, because I'm definitely going to rustle some jimmies in this video. Just because I say one of these is a bad starter Pokemon, doesn't mean it's a bad Pokemon. A lot of these designs are great, it's just that some don't fill the role as a starter as well as others. Now, with that out of the way, there are 3 key things that make a good starter Pokemon.
Number 1!
Natural and believable progression.
I'm gonna take you back to 1st grade for this one. Complete the pattern. Of course, we should all know the answer to this one. The answer would obviously look something like this.
No, that's wrong!
You see how your brain immediately was dissatisfied with that answer? It's because our brains naturally like it when things make sense. Now, this is a huge oversimplification, but the reason you get that oddly satisfying feeling is because your brain doesn't have to work as hard to make sense of it. The less imperfections, the less your brain has to work. Conversely, when you see something you can't make sense of, you get the opposite reaction. Now let's instead look at a set of sequences that do follow a pattern.
By the way, this is important, so write it down, because I'm gonna do like a thing where I blow your fucking mind.
Okay, so you have some pretty basic circles. Next step defines the pattern a little more. Yeah, okay. And boom. Final step completes the pattern.
Nice.
Now this is the important part, because the beauty of a pattern like this is if I were to take out any part of this sequence, we have enough information from the other 2 to figure out the missing link.
Alright. Okay, so now are you ready to get your mind fucking blown?
Just like the pattern, a good starter evolution line should give you enough information with its design that you're able to imagine any of the states given the other 2. Drawing from real life, when you see a small blue alligator, logically it would turn into a big blue alligator. And when it doesn't make sense, you're immediately hit with that feeling. The goal of a starter isn't to surprise you, but rather show how much your original starter has grown.
Number 2!
Basic and fundamental.
Starter Pokemon are undoubtedly the most important designs in any given Pokemon game. Despite the hundreds of different Pokemon in the game, literally everyone who plays the game will have one of these 3 on their team. So they need to make a good first impression and give a good idea of what to expect. This is kind of what sets starter Pokemon apart from other Pokemon in the game. If the player doesn't like the design of a Pokemon they find in the wild, then they simply don't use it. But if the player doesn't like their starter, or what it turns into, then they're either forced to use something they don't like, or actively make the game harder for themselves by not using them. So they need to please the most amount of people possible, while also giving the player a good idea of what to expect. Just like marketing. If you make something too complex or niche, you begin to lose people. That's why a good starter Pokemon should have a general design that's hard to dislike. This also helps with immersion. The more of a blank canvas the Pokemon is, the more it allows the player to imagine what their Pokemon is like, making the whole experience feel more personal. Because just like real life, animals don't have a set personality or occupation. A starter shouldn't push the boundaries of what a Pokemon can be, but rather introduce players to the basics of the game. It's literally in the name, starter Pokemon.
Number 3!
Valuable.
Your starter Pokemon is essentially the main character of your adventure, and should be an invaluable member of your team. After all, you only get one of them, and lose access to the other 2. The ideal starter Pokemon should be better than your average Pokemon, but not as good as the pseudos and legendaries. Your starter should never feel like a hindrance to the team. If anything, it should be the carry. Now, because of the balancing of the game, grass types are naturally going to struggle in this category. So any grass type that still manages to be useful, despite this, is exceptional. If the player ever feels like boxing their starter during their playthrough, for any reason, then that Pokemon has ultimately failed as a starter.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks here, guys.
The starter trio that exemplifies these qualities the best is the Hoenn Starters. Mudkip, Torchic, and Trico, along with their evolutions, Swampert, Blaziken, and Sceptile, are some of the most beloved Pokemon of all time. And for good reason. All of them have a very simple but memorable design, the evolution lines feel natural and believable, all three of them are equally as good and don't overshadow each other, and what this starter trio does probably the best is being an irreplaceable member to your Hoenn adventure. Swampert, Blaziken, and Sceptile are easily the best Pokemon you can use in your playthrough of Gen 3. In addition to having great stats, they fare very well against a vast majority of the important battles in the game. It's also important to note, despite the usual hindrance of being a grass type, Sceptile not only manages to be useful, but is also one of the best Pokemon to use in the game, especially in Emerald. These guys are the golden standard when it comes to starters, and are without a doubt one of the three we are keeping. Next up, what's going on? Itzjhon here. Just wanted to say thanks for all the support recently. It honestly means the world to me. And as a little thanks, and because it's the giving season, anyone who subs and drops a comment on this video might have a chance at getting some goodies. But you gotta be quick, or else someone else might snatch them up. So smash that subscribe button and give me your spiciest takes down below. Alright, back to the video. I know you guys are definitely waiting for this one. The next starter trio to make the cut are the Kanto Starters. Pokemon just would not be the same without them. They check all the boxes of what a good starter Pokemon should be, so much so that they quite literally became the blueprint for every generation that followed. Now look, I know it's become pretty trendy to dislike big man Charizard, with all the special treatment and how much Pokemon likes to shove him into everything nowadays. But if the only criticism you can give is, it's too popular, then there's a reason it's that popular. There is no Pokemon that represents what the franchise is all about better than Charizard. And the fact that Blastoise and Venusaur still managed to keep up in terms of popularity show you just how strong this trio really is. Now instead of just giving you the third and final one, let's go through all our potential options. First up, we have the newest bunch, the Paldea Starters. These guys are interesting. Sprigatito evolved into what everyone was afraid of, and Quaxly's final evolution came out of nowhere. Fuecoco is definitely the winner of the bunch, turning into a cool fire ghost crocodile. While all three of them are definitely great additions to your team in Paldea, and Skeledirge is pretty cool, it's not enough to put him over many of the other starter trios. Next up, we got the Galar Starters. Now if you asked me when these guys first dropped, I would have said it's one of the worst, but these guys kinda grew on me. I've always wanted a grass gorilla starter, and Rillaboom would probably be one of, if not my favorite grass starter, if it just didn't have the drums. If you wanted to give the drum motif, you could have easily just had Rillaboom beat its chest. You know, the thing that normal gorillas do. The soccer bunny isn't the worst, but man, I don't know how the hell Inteleon got the okay. Inteleon is the perfect example of what not to do when designing a starter. No natural progression at all. Going from a sad chameleon to a secret agent, it's mediocre in game, and its design is just so weird for no reason. The main problem with these guys is they lean way too hard into the theming. You go from cute little animal to works a 9-to-5 job, and because of this, they're far from making the cut. Now I'm not gonna lie to you guys, the Gen 7 starters are my least favorite. In addition to being way too anthropomorphic, the major problem with all of them is none of their evolutions feel natural. You go from a little cat to a wrestler, a goofy seal to an opera siren, and a little owl to a Robin Hood bird. I don't think any of these designs are bad per se, they just aren't good starter designs. When my Popplio evolved for the first time, it evoked the same feeling when I was a kid, reaching into my McDonald's Happy Meal, expecting to get one of those like little video game Sonic toys, but instead pulling out a My Little Pony. But I gotta give credit where credit is due, these guys fare extremely well in competitive, with Incineroar being on almost 100% of teams. But, to nobody's surprise, the Gen 7 starters do not make the cut. Now Gen 6 is an interesting one. Greninja is one of the best starter lines in the franchise, and it shows. So much so that it greatly overshadows the other Gen 6 starters. Hell, I'm pretty sure there's a ton of people out there who know Greninja, but have no idea who Chestnut or Delphox is. And that's kinda where the main problems with this trio lie. I actually kinda like Chestnut, but this guy might as well be the poster boy for what happens when you don't give the people what they want. And Delphox, well, Game Freak should have taken the hint that people don't like when their starter stands up. It was so bad that people forgot it broke the fire fighting curse. It was much too anthropomorphic for most people's taste, especially when all people wanted was just a cool fox. I really do like these guys, but unfortunately for Greninja and friends, they don't make the cut. Now here's the one that's gonna rustle a lot of people's jimmies. Gen 5. I think the Gen 5 starters suck. Apart from Oshawott, who I think is an amazing design, all the other Pokemon here are, for a lack of a better term, it's no surprise that Tepig is easily one of the least popular fire-type starters. It was the reason that once upon a time, more than half the fire starters were fire fighting. Snivy was this cool lizard that somehow ended up losing its appendages and feeling as if it devolved. And again, while Oshawott and Dilwad are great, Samurott is such a weird place to end off this line. To make matters worse, they aren't the greatest Pokemon to use in your run of Black and White either, often feeling like a hindrance to your team, which a starter Pokemon should obviously never do. To give you an idea, out of all the Elite Four and Gym Leaders in Black and White, Serperior and Samurott are only good against one. Now, I don't think competitive matters too much when judging starters, but just to give you an example how bad these guys were in Gen 5, Serperior and Samurott were in the never used tier. Emboar wasn't doing much better, sitting in the rarely used tier. There really isn't much good I can say about them. Sorry, Oshawott. Now we're down to the final two, Johto and Sinnoh. Let's take a look at the Gen 2 starters. Totodile and Cyndaquil's line are nothing short of perfection. They check every box of what a good starter should be. Now, I really like Chikorita and Bayleaf, and I would have said the same thing for them too, if it wasn't for Meganium. While I also do have a soft spot for Meganium, it's the definition of underwhelming. Design-wise, it doesn't feel like much of an improvement over Bayleaf, and leaves a lot more to be desired. You've probably heard it tons of times before, but Chikorita's line straight up sucks in Gold and Silver. It learns no good moves, and just ends up being a brick on most people's teams. And it's for that reason that the final starter trio to make the cut is Gen 4. I really don't have much other to say than they're great. While some of the other gens struggle to do something right, the Sinnoh Starters don't really do anything wrong. They're easily some of the best Pokemon to use in your Diamond and Pearl playthrough, and one of the reasons why every Gen 4 team looks the same. There's nothing really bad I can say about the designs either. Their evolutions feel natural and believable. Piplup, namely, has become one of the most beloved Pokemon in existence, but they're all unique and memorable for the most part. And it's for that reason that Gen 4 makes the cut. The 3 best starter trios, and the objective answer to that question, are Gens 1, 3, and 4. So there you have it. Which starters do you guys like? Let me know if you would have picked different ones in the comments down below. As always, I make sure to reply to everyone, so give me your best takes. Make sure to smash that subscribe button. But anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao, fellas.